It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
Well, hello everybody, this is Phil Ferguson, and you are listening to the cleverly titled The Phil Ferguson Show. This is show number 198, and it's early in 2017. Thank you for joining us for the show. A couple of fun things later today. We're going to talk about the brand new documentary called We Believe in Dinosaurs, and my sincere apologies to the film and the people that we had on, because I meant to put this show up a full week ago. They are raising money to finish the film, and the fundraising is about to close. So I don't know if you'll have time to go donate money, but you know, if you can, go check it out. It's We Believe in Dinosaurs. It's at Indiegogo, and we'll be talking about the fact in the interview that there's plenty of time to donate. Well, there's not. There's only hours left at the time that this show goes out. The Indiegogo may be allowed to stay open past its deadline, but the good news is they were trying to reach $50,000, and they already have $59,000 as of this moment that I'm recording this. So go check it out. And in the middle of the interview, I do play a sound clip, kind of like a trailer for the movie. It doesn't do it justice. You need to see the images. So go check that out as well, and make sure you share it with your friends and everybody so that they can find out about this cool movie, and I can't wait for it to actually come out. They had full access to the Creation Museum and the ARK Park Adventure Theme Park to film this movie, so I'm looking very much forward to it. Before we get to that, I'm going to talk about a couple of things, and I just wanted to let everyone know that next episode, next week, I will be talking about financing your home. And one of the single biggest questions that I get, or at least have gotten in the last few weeks, is should I prepay my home? Should I get a 15-year loan instead of a 30-year loan? Should I pay points? All those questions, I'm going to dig into that and try to work through some of the math on that next episode. So look forward to that. And this episode, I'm going to talk about something called social impact bonds. And it is something that a couple of people have actually asked me about, and I've looked into them. And a social impact bond is a way for a organization, a company, or maybe even an individual investor to invest, and I've got my scare quotes up because it's radio and you can't see them. It's a way for you to invest in improved social outcomes. The area that is being used most now has to do with prisons, and if I can say the word correctly, recidivism. I think that's right. So someone wants to create a program to help prisoners leave prison and not come back to prison, but it costs money. So they need funds to run this program. So people contribute funds. I don't want to say donate, because the expectation is that you're making an investment. And if the program is successful and the prison system saves a lot of money, then you get a generous part of that savings, and you could make money out of that if the program actually proves to be successful. Now, the first thing is that a social impact bond is very, very poorly named. It has the word bond in it. It is not a bond. I mean, okay, by some technical definitions, maybe it is a bond, but you should not think of it as a bond. It's not like investing $10,000, and unless they default, you can get your $10,000 back. It's not like a bond where you invest $10,000 and you make 2, 3, 4, 5% every year. You invest your money, and at some point in time, as defined by the program, and every program is unique, the results will be measured, and you may get some of your money back. You may get all of your money back. You may get all of your money back plus a whole lot of extra if it was highly successful. That is more like a stock. Do not think of it as a bond. So this does not fit into the cushion part of your investment portfolio. They can be very risky, and they are very, very new. Matter of fact, the first ones to occur in the United States were in 2010. Wikipedia does have a nice article on this, very informative. And I also found a very nice story at the Nonprofit Information Network Association. Well, that's a mouthful. The title of their article is 8 Sobering Thoughts for Social Impact Bond Supporters. So there's a lot of pros and cons to these things. I think at this point in time, I would say do not use these. They are something that is outside of the scope of what I normally do. And one of the a couple of basic investment philosophies of mine that they may violate. One, KISS, keep it simple, silly. And these aren't simple. They're complicated. Another one is that invest in only what you understand. I don't know that I fully understand these, and I've been doing some research, so I would not invest in them until after I understood them, and even then I might not, because once I fully understand them, I might not like them. There's something that's brand new. They don't have a long track record. They don't have a history of performance. I have no way to judge how well they're going to work. Another thing is that for me personally, when I invest, I want to be able to get my money back if I change my mind. Now, with an index fund in a brokerage account, it may take you many days to maybe even 2 weeks to get your money as cash. But pretty much you can do it at any time. I really, really dislike any investments that I'm stuck in. And one of those is non-traded REITs, real estate investment trusts, which I've talked about many times before. Some of those you can only get money out once every 6 months or once every quarter, and you can only apply for the money, and maybe you can get it out, maybe you can't, and you're going to get it for the price they tell you. Another thing that these social impact bonds, I don't even like the name of them. Another thing that's a problem, they are not liquid at all. They're not tradable. So not only is it hard for you to get your money out, but it's hard for you to know what it's worth. You may have to wait years for the results to come in to figure out how much they're worth or how much you made. So a lot of things against them from my perspective. Now, are you doing something good? Maybe. Are you helping to finance a program that might make lives better for people? Definitely a possibility. Is there a better way of doing that? Maybe there is. If this program is likely to work, why isn't the responsible government agency funding it? If they can't see value in it, why do you see value in it? What is it that you know that they don't know? Maybe they just don't think it's worth investing in this type of project. Maybe your time and effort would be better spent finding new politicians that would fund the things that you like. Another potential problem, and it's interesting that quite a few conservatives have promoted these programs because they don't want the government involved in social issues. They want a smaller government. So this could actually provide an excuse for them to say, we shouldn't be funding these things. Individual citizens can fund these things. Well, now social services become an investment opportunity, which I'm conflicted about, because that means if it doesn't make money for somebody, we probably shouldn't do it. At first, it starts off as a nice way of cutting costs, like with the prison system, where if people don't go back, it saves a lot of money. But with other systems, sometimes things just don't make money, things that we want as a community. For example, Medicare for all doesn't necessarily make money, although that case might. International or a nationwide high-speed rail system, which I think would be really nice, may not make money. It just may be in the best interest of all of the people. It may be in the best interest of business in general, but how does it make money? So I don't like the idea of politicians being excused from considering what they should do to make the world a better place for the citizens. So all those things at this point in time, in my very, very basic understanding of these things, I am not going to recommend investing in social impact bonds. If it's something you want to do, you can research it on your own, but keep in mind, don't think of it as a bond. It is a potentially volatile investment. And one of the things I read about, you could make 10, 15, 20%. Keep in mind, conservative, high-quality bonds pay nothing like that. If you're promised something, a much higher return, you should realize there must be some kind of risk involved. Otherwise, why would they pay that? The other thing I'm going to segue into really quickly is peer-to-peer lending. And the one that came up in a couple of emails, I'm not sure how to say it, but Kiva, Kiva, K-I-V-A. And this is a long-running, well-known website organization that you can donate as little as $25, I think is the minimum, and much, much more. And people have asked me about investing through this process with Kiva. I'm just going to call it Kiva. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'll fix it in the future. But do not think of this as investing. Think of this as charity. You put in some money, and you can pick who gets some of the money. And your $25 does not go to someone who needs $25 or your $100. You fund programs, you fund projects, you fund loans to people that are somewhere in desperate need of money and can't get a loan from a normal bank. And it is a wonderful way, I think, for you to do something good and for you to make an impact in the world. It is way better than socially conscious mutual funds, which is another thing that I've talked about, but it's been a while. Don't invest in those. If you have money in those, get out. If you want to know why I don't like those, of course, you can email me, phil@polarisfinancialplanning.com, or maybe even just send me an email saying, yes, you'd like me to cover that show topic again. I'll do it if you ask. Both of today's little topics are from emails, so I do appreciate the input. Again, phil@polarisfinancialplanning.com. Anyway, back to Kiva. It's a nice thing to do. I have done it. Matter of fact, I have some money there, and I've just kind of put it in and forgot about it. I considered it a donation, and I just let it keep rolling over and doing work. They take that money, and they find people that need to get money. But somehow people seem to think that this is an investment. And I went to the Kiva website and did some poking around, and I found this nice little thing here. This question and answers, facts, frequently asked questions. Do Kiva and or Kiva lenders receive interest on Kiva loans? Kiva never collects interest on loans, and individual Kiva lenders do not receive interest from loans they support on Kiva. So you make nothing. This is not an investment. It's okay to do. I actually quite like it. I have donated money. It is a donation. It is you doing something wonderful for somebody that has a need. I support Kiva. I like the idea a lot, but it is not investing. It is charity. So go give money. Now, if the loans that your money goes into do well, in your money, you say you put in $100, it might stay $100, and at some point in the future, you could take your $100 out, but you could also lose all of that money. It could be put into a loan that fails. Now, on their website, they say that 97% of their loans are repaid. So odds are the vast majority of your money will come back and then be loaned to somebody else. So I like it. I like it a lot, but don't think of it as an investment. Think of it as charity, as something you should do. So anyway, that's our couple of finance and investing topics for today. We're going to take a little break, and then we're going to learn about the Creation Museum and the ARK Adventure Park. And I hope you enjoy that interview.
An atheist loves his fellow man instead of a God. An atheist thinks that heaven is something for which we should work now, here on earth, for all men together to enjoy. An atheist knows that he can get no help through prayer, but that he must find in himself the inner conviction and strength to meet life, to grapple with it, to subdue it, to enjoy it. An atheist knows that only in a knowledge of himself and a knowledge of his fellow man can he find the understanding that will help to a life of personal and societal fulfillment. An atheist then seeks to know himself and his fellow rather than to know a God. An atheist knows that a hospital should be built instead of a church. An atheist knows that a deed must be done instead of a prayer said. An atheist strives for involvement in life and not escape into death. He wants disease conquered, poverty vanished, war eliminated. He wants man to understand and love man. He wants an ethical way of life. He knows that he cannot rely on God, cannot channel action into prayer, and that there is no hope for any troubles, solutions in a hereafter. He knows that we are our brother's keeper. He knows that we're the keeper of our own lives, that we are responsible people, and that the job is here, and the time is now.
All right, everybody, welcome back. This is Phil Ferguson, and of course, you are still listening to the cleverly titled Phil Ferguson Show. With me today, I have two filmmakers. I have Monica Long-Ross and Clayton Brown, and they are working on a new movie called We Believe in Dinosaurs. How you guys doing?
Good.
Doing great.
Thank you, Phil.
So you actually believe in dinosaurs?
Well, the title, once you see the trailer, once you see the film, which will soon be available, not yet, but it becomes clear what the title is referring to, and it's not we, the filmmakers, it's that the creationists that we show in the film, that they believe in dinosaurs, which one of the people that is prominent in the film is named Doug. He's one of the incredible artists that's involved in the Creation Museum's project of building this full-scale replica of Noah's Ark. And in order to make that as complete as they wanted, they have come up with the idea of putting these really amazing sculptures of animals that they believed would have been on the Ark. So Doug and his team are making all of these animals, but the Creation Museum is also doing lots of other stuff, which we can talk about. One of the things that happens early on in the film is that they have donated to them a pretty amazing fossil of an Allosaurus dinosaur. And so Doug, near the beginning of the film, says, I just want you guys to know, we do believe in dinosaurs, because some people think creationists and a lot of the more evangelical Christians don't think dinosaurs existed, or they think maybe they were put there by Satan or some other kind of crazy theory. But Doug was reassuring us that no, they do believe in dinosaurs, and in fact, they embrace their version of science that explains the dinosaurs, so that the fossils are real. They were buried by Noah's flood 4,000 years ago, and so they believe that they have rigorous science that they pursue that show that these dinosaur fossils are in fact just 4,000 years old, and that they lived at the same time as humans.
Now, it's interesting.
And we're also, just a second, we're also playing with the fact that mainstream science would not say believe. They would say we accept.
Yeah,
dinosaurs.
That was one of my many thoughts. Another one, of course, is the way you're phrasing things is it sounds like you're trying to stay outside of the characters, of the people you featured, and you're not saying this is good or this is bad. You're trying to be external, almost like an anthropologist, and saying this is what they think.
Well, that's partially true. We are definitely looking at what the creationists believe and why they believe it, but we are a documentary film company that specializes in stories that we find in the world of science. So we are a secular company, and we are firmly on the side of mainstream science. We accept evolution we know that the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. That's never a doubt for us. So the film, while it is not a kind of an either-or film, we do believe that we need to take what these people believe seriously. And so this is a serious examination of what they believe, why they believe it, as opposed to look at this backwater group of people who are ignorant and don't know what they're talking about. This is a real serious thing for them, and it's a serious thing for our country, so we're taking it seriously.
Right.
And we look at it as putting up a mirror to the American public and saying, is this what you believe? Do you know about these beliefs as opposed to accepting mainstream science? What's happening here? So,
and of course,
if we do that seriously, it has no effect.
Sure, and I haven't seen it, and I've only seen the trailer, which we'll play in a minute just to kind of tease the listeners. But I kind of envision this, like I know anything, like Jesus Camp, where you go in, you talk to the people, you let them say in their own words what they think, what they believe, what they feel, what they're doing. You film that and you put it all together. And I would imagine that some of my listeners will sit and watch this film kind of in shock how deep this rabbit hole goes, how seriously and truly held these beliefs are. And you don't have to say anything as the producers, the directors, what I may not have the titles right, forgive me. You don't have to put in a commentary. You just let them speak for themselves.
I think that's a fair comparison. I think that we are indeed somewhat like Jesus Camp, setting up a possibility for the audience to see the group honestly saying what they believe. And we told them that. We did not try to hide in any way that we were a secular company. We had incredible access. They let us in, and they let us talk to just about everybody. They gave us their time to come into their design center and watch them designing these animals and being up against the clock for the opening of the Ark. It was pretty incredible, and they have an opportunity to say what they believe, and the audience has an opportunity to see what that belief is and to start discussing where that's going, especially since we have people now in the White House who've spoken against evolution. So, yes, that's a pretty fair comparison.
We have always wanted to, and we always do in the films that we make, to represent the people that we talk to honestly, as though, one of the things we always say is we would like for them to recognize themselves on the screen. And if they were to watch the film and be in the audience, we would like everyone in the film to say, yep, that's me. That's what I said. It hasn't been manipulated. I haven't been edited to say something I don't believe or to look ridiculous or anything like that. That's very important to us.
Right. And I love that, because that should be enough. That should get a large portion of the American population to watch that and go, whoa. But we'll see.
It's true. I mean, we've it's so interesting now that we have a much clearer understanding of the mechanism and the mindset and the thought process behind creation science. And another thing that we are asked a lot is, so what if they believe what they want to believe? And we find that that's absolutely true. Anyone can believe whatever they want. And if this were just an issue of creationism, the belief, the religious or spiritual belief that stays in the church, of course, we would not be making this film. It's when it comes out of the church and is encapsulated in a science museum that looks and sounds just like any other science museum, and yet teaches these scientific falsehoods as though they are real. That's when as we say, it becomes our story to tell, and that's when I think it will be kind of surprising to a lot of people, because, as you say, the complexity and frankly the bewildering array of beliefs that they have constructed, it is something. I mean, it's really something.
I think the other side is sophistication with which they are getting that message out to the general public, and how much advertising. We were told that, and we weren't watching, Sunday night on 60 Minutes, there was an ad for the Creation Museum here in the Midwest and here in Chicago. And so they're enormously sophisticated when it comes to communication and media and PR and pushing back against anything that's said about them. This is a campaign to proselytize, and if it were religion, again, we have freedom of religion in this country, and we wouldn't be telling that story. But when it's science, and they want to convince all of us that the Earth is only 6,000 years old, and that dinosaurs and humans lived at the same time,
and that evolution is false.
And evolution is false. And when there are teachers in biology classes in high school who are afraid to teach evolution in their classroom because of the pushback they're going to get from parents and even principals, and when you have people like George W. Bush said, why don't we teach them both? Why don't we teach creationism and evolution in the high school biology classes and let the kids decide? Well, all of that has ramifications for science, and that's what makes this story interesting.
And my cheeky retort for that, teach them both, I tell the creationists, I agree 100%. Which Sunday morning should I show up to teach evolution?
Yeah.
And suddenly they aren't open-minded. Suddenly they don't want the kids to hear both stories. So it's disingenuous. But before I get too far down that, what I'd like to do, the three of us will take a 2-minute pause, and we'll let the listeners listen to the trailer that's on the Indiegogo site. And, of course, the audio only doesn't do it justice. So, listeners, you can pause, you can come back to the show, you can watch this afterwards, but make sure you go to Indiegogo, and you want to look for We Believe in Dinosaurs. It's by 137 Films, and watch this trailer, and maybe, just maybe, donate some money. They've only got a few days left when this show goes out, so go give them the money. Let's get this bad boy out there. But if you guys can hang on 2 minutes, we're going to listen to this audio.
Hi, I'm Morgan Spurlock, and I am so excited to be a part of this new film, We Believe in Dinosaurs. I'm so proud of this movie, but we need your help in getting it finished and out into the world. So check the rewards and see what you can do to help pitch in and make it happen.
I'm Clayton Brown.
And I'm Monica Ross. We are co-directors of a new film called We Believe in Dinosaurs, a documentary about Noah's Ark, creationism, and America's weird relationship with science.
For over 10 years, we've been telling stories that we find in the world of science. Our first film was called The Atom Smashers, and it told the story of American physicists' attempt to find the Higgs boson. And our second film was called The Believers, about scientists that thought they had discovered cold fusion. Both films were in festivals around the world, and The Atom Smashers was on the PBS show Independent Lens.
When we heard that the head of the Creation Museum in Kentucky was planning on building a full-scale, 510-foot, $100 million replica of Noah's Ark with the express purpose of debunking evolution, we knew that this was our story to tell.
So for the past 3 years, we've had incredible access to the designers, builders, planners, artists who are behind the building of the Ark Encounter, as well as those on the other side who are protesting the building of the Ark based on the politics, the tax incentives, and of course the scientists who are concerned about what this means for science education in Kentucky and for the rest of the country.
Who are the creationists? What do they believe? And why do they want all Americans to believe it along with them? We have now elected a president that scientists are calling the first anti-science president in the history of this country. And he selected a vice president who has openly spoken against evolution.
So you can tell this is a really important story. And in order to move it from our studios out into the world where it can make a difference, we have to put together a team of editors and sound designers and graphic artists and musicians and post-production experts, and we need you to be a part of that team to actually make this all happen. Help us support science and help us tell a really great story. And from all of us behind the scenes making this film, we really appreciate your support. Thank you.
And here's a sample of what's to come.
We believe in dinosaurs. We believe that dinosaurs and man lived at the same time. This is a fossil created during Noah's flood.
There are a lot of gaps in just the average layperson's understanding of science, and so creationism comes in and fills those gaps.
It's going to be the largest wood timber structure in the world.
This 510-foot-long wooden boat attraction is set to open next summer.
You know, you think of dinosaurs, you think, oh my goodness, he'd never be able to get those on the Ark. Well, T-Rex, when he was born, was only, that big.
They're trying to teach Bibles in school as history.
The whole point of this park is to teach people that these biblical events were real history in real time that actually happened.
This thing is massive. It's insane how big this thing is. I'm really, really excited. I don't want to be, but I am.
Well, that sounds like that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm very excited now. So when is this going to be done?
Good question.
Yeah, it's it is a good question. We're in a new and exciting chapter in our company. We've been around since 2004, making science documentaries that kind of focus on stories that we find in the world of science. We can talk about our previous films.
Please. Why don't we take a pause about this film and tell me about what you've done in the past and give us some details so that the listeners know that this is not just a couple of people who go, hey, let's make a film. You've already done this.
All right. We started in approximately 2004, and our first film was The Atom Smashers, which was the story of the hunt for the Higgs boson. We started way up at esoteric physics, and it was the search here in the United States, trying to find it right at our own Fermilab, which is about 40 miles south of Chicago, before CERN went online. And that story also was about what is science and what is big science and how committed are Americans to that science. And it was during that film that Dover in Pennsylvania, when they were trying to get intelligent design into the classroom, was happening. And we started thinking about this film. So that was our first film.
And then after that was on Independent Lens on PBS. We were excited, and we kept on going into our second feature, which was another really fascinating story in the chapter of American culture and science. And this was we told the story of the two electrochemists in Utah that thought they had discovered cold fusion back in 1989. I don't know if you remember that story, but these two guys thought they had made the discovery of the century that would have essentially liberated all of mankind from fossil fuels, from nuclear fuels. It would have been the perfect utopian solution. But then within 3 months, the whole thing exploded. They were accused of fraud and scientific malfeasance, and essentially their careers were ruined and they fled the country. So it was a really fascinating chapter in what has become our theme of America's strange and confusing and troubled relationship with science. So in that one, what happens when greed and a perfect solution encounters the media and the scientific method and all kinds of stuff. It just blew up. And so it was a really fascinating story.
And have you been at film festivals? Have you won awards with these things?
We did. For that one, we won the Gold Hugo at the Chicago International Film Festival. We won Best Doc at the Maryland Film Festival. The Atom Smashers won a couple of awards as well. And then we also did a couple of short docs. One was called This Has Been to Space. It was about some kids at local Adler Planetarium, who launch a weather balloon into space with cameras and everything else, and it comes down, and in this instance came down somewhere very unexpected, so it was kind of a fun little film that we did in the meantime. And then we came to this third feature, pursuing our theme again of America's troubled relationship with science. And as Monica said, we had always kind of kept our eye on this issue of evolution. What I think of as the sister controversy about climate change and climate change denial, that's been pretty well documented. But not too many people are aware of the contentious nature that our country, kind of unique among the other civilized nations, has with evolution. And a recent poll, Pew poll, showed that anywhere from 40 to 42% of Americans think the Earth is less than 10,000 years old. And that's a really staggering number. So we wanted to get at the heart of that. What's going on with that? Who are these people that believe such a thing, and how is this belief system spreading? How is it, who are the people and what do they believe? We wanted to kind of pull back the lid and take a look at this.
And we were really surprised to hear that there was, I believe, now this number changes who you're talking to because the creationists say there are more, about 15 creationist museums in the United States and in southern Canada, so in North America. Some of them, the one in Kentucky is the most sophisticated, but there are others that have very important fossils in them that are in other places in the United States. And they are teaching a creationist science, what they call creation science point of view, and are open to the general public.
Now, what percentage of this do you think is related to religion? I mean, are there creationists or evolutionist deniers that aren't tied to a religious belief?
I would say no. I would say this is pretty much 100% a result of a dogmatic view that the Bible is literally true from start to finish.
And literally true in the exact way that they read it.
Yes. I mean, they believe that Genesis, for example, is a scientific document, that it is historically and scientifically accurate, and therefore the creation story in Genesis is literally and scientifically true. So to answer your question, I don't think there's any reason that anyone would believe in creationism if they didn't believe that the Bible was 100% true.
And it's probably right to say here that not all Christians have this literal view of the Bible. There are many denominations, and the Catholics among them. The Pope came out and said, absolutely, I accept evolution, and Catholics do not have to deny evolution. So it's not all Christians, and I think there will be Christians who say to us regularly, well, I accept evolution. I don't have to go there. It is interesting, though, in a general poll that there are people who, and we had this from a minister too, that feel they must believe in a literal Bible like the creationists, but it certainly isn't dictated by the Christian religion. It is a certain group that is caught up in this, but it doesn't seem to be going away.
No, it doesn't, and it's funny because
when we first heard about it,
one of the things that I agree with Ken Ham, he says something along the lines of, if you don't accept Adam and Eve as being true, the whole thing falls apart. And I say, yes, it truly is that simple. It's all fiction, but one must admire. I've been near the boat, and I was at the opening day protest, in case you did not know. And about 5 years ago, I was involved with taking 300 people to the Creation Museum, led by a famous blogger, P.Z. Myers, who's also a biologist. And it is incredible. The scale and the quality of the exhibits, the materials that they use, it is haunting how disturbed the whole thing is, but one can also be impressed by the quality of the displays. I'm assuming the Ark is the same kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And one of our characters, Doug, is the chief designer and builder of those animals, and he puts love and faith, you can only say, into his work. He's very sincere about making it the best that he possibly can, and a whole team of designers who are very talented. You cannot fault that. They're extremely talented.
So the movie, of course, you get to go inside the Ark and film?
Yes, we did.
We get this question a lot too, is how did you get this access, and how, did you have to go undercover, and, all this kind of stuff. And as Monica said earlier, we were quite upfront from the beginning that we were a secular science-based organization, and they are so good at PR, and they have so many press releases, and they invite mainstream press, they invite skeptics, they invite non-believers. They probably more or less welcomed your big group. They want everyone to come. They want to talk to everyone. So we, in fact, had to do no subterfuge or anything. We had pretty unlimited access, and we really appreciate that. And we're grateful to them for opening up their community and their work to us. And that's another reason why, yes, we disagree with them, but we respect them in terms of having beliefs that they are absolutely passionate and sure about. We don't agree with them, but we respect them.
And we came more and more to the conclusion that we talked to a pastor in Lexington about is the separation of church and state. When it comes to the tax issues, that is also part of our film and part of the story of the building the Ark, then we need to draw lines. But when it comes to the religious side of it, we also need to be accepting. So it's a line that that our country was built on, and we need to reinforce. But at the same time, we don't need to be belittling, which we don't want to be.
Right, but it is a fine line, because at the same time, we do believe what they're doing is harmful to our nation. And so that's something that we have conversations about almost daily as we craft the film from 100 to 200 hours. We're not sure even how much we have, but a lot. Bringing that down to 90 minutes, that's, there's a lot of, it's a lot to work with and figure out.
And I understand what you're saying, and maybe your line is a little more in one way than mine, because the division I always make is that I must always respect people, but I don't have to respect beliefs. And if your belief is harmful and silly and ridiculous, I reserve the right to ridicule your belief, but not you as an individual human being.
I think we might take one step further.
Yeah.
If you believe something among yourselves in your community, then that's one thing. But when you're trying to educate other people and other children and affect policy, then your belief system is more of an activism. So I think if you believe what you want to believe, that's fine. I don't have a problem with anything that anyone wants to believe. It's just when they start trying to get other people to believe it and trying to convince other people using problematic methods, then it's a problem.
Well, and of course, I could make a philosophical argument that any religion that doesn't intentionally try to spread its stupidity fails, and we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
I think getting into politicization of science is part of the problem here, and the fact that we have Mike Pence, who's spoken openly against evolution, and Ben Carson's going to be the head of HUD, who has spoken against evolution. That it has such a strong White House and power base right now that we definitely have to highlight the fact that there are ramifications for science here, and so we're not shying away from that. We're definitely going to do that, while at the same time not ridiculing people's faith. But there's a problem here.
Your position, I guess I would make the slight distinction between our position and your position. We're not coming at this from an atheist point of view. We're coming at this from a science point of view, and science in American culture. Sure. So we have no intention of pointing out problems with religion or faith. It's just when those belief systems start influencing science and politics, that's where we...
And education. Although this film is not about the schools, and there have been other, there is another documentary and some other documentaries who've mentioned this in the schools. What we noticed in the 10 years we were looking at this is that, it seemed as if we haven't gotten intelligent design into the classroom, for instance, and so now we're going to build museums and have kids, even from public schools, take field trips to the museum, and we'll teach them these. And if we can just sow a little bit of doubt in their minds, they even say that, we might bring them to this different way of thinking. Now, that's a real problem, and we have to be honest about that and discuss that and see what's going on. So we absolutely agree that there is a problem here that needs to be discussed. And one of our subjects is a geologist from Kentucky and head of the paleontological. We can never say that. Society of Kentucky. And he is following some of these things in his beloved Kentucky because he cares about it, and his family goes back to the time of Daniel Boone there. And he cares about it, and he has been following the number of public schools that have done field trips to the Creation Museum and now are going to the ARK. And that to him, the science is wrong, and yet we're rewarding these students by showing them the wrong science at a very young age, and that has to be cleared up. So that will come out in our film of where are we going with that kind of issue.
Did you guys get any footage, either on your own or from some other source, of the ARK being built?
Oh, yes. We were there.
A couple of times. Like I said, their PR firm is very sophisticated. They had a couple of press days where they invited all press to come take a tour of the construction of the ARK, and we attended. We were led on a tour, and there were TV stations, radio stations from all over, and we took a tour, saw the construction. We had free access to interviews with whoever. They made everybody available for interviews. That happened a couple of times. So yeah, we have, and plus we also just went over to the site a couple of times and just shot footage of it being constructed. We were there just about 1 week before it opened, as they were loading all the animals in and putting airbrushing and last touches and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, we've got quite a bit of that footage.
And when the cranes were going up, loading the dinosaurs onto the ARK, we were there.
Would it be fair to say that this, they used dozens and dozens of pieces of heavy equipment to grade the ground and to dig holes, and I don't know how many hundreds of or thousands of tons of concrete and rebar. This is not a wooden structure. It is a modern concrete steel structure with wood applied to it. Is that fair?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the things that they say about that is there are modern requirements from code, bathroom facilities, sprinkler systems, escape exits, handicapped access, and all that required this superstructure of concrete. So they do claim that if it were not for those things, they could have built a boat just out of wood. But in order to be in this modern world of codes and all that stuff, they had to do it the other way. So it's hard to know.
Yeah, and I think they're full of crap, is what I think. But
I think that the one thing when we had exit interviews and when the media in general asked, everyone says, "Look how big it is, and so huge it is." And I heard one grandfather say to his grandson, "Look over there, that boat, look at how huge it is." And Noah and his sons built that all by themselves.
One of the interesting things, there are a lot of solutions that creation science has to come up with in order to explain some of the things that we find
in reality.
Impossible. And one of the things, there was a promotional poster that we saw early on in the design shop of the ARK being built. And it was beautiful, again, all of their craftsmanship is incredible. So this poster was beautifully hand painted, and there was a big crane in the background. And I said at that point, oh, I thought for a minute that this poster was representing how it would have been in Noah's time. But then I saw that crane there. And they said, oh, no, Noah would have known how to build a crane. And they believe that Noah was super intelligent, that in those days the humans were almost like super beings because he lived to be 900 something years old. He had intelligence that dwarfed our modern day intelligence. When their artists were depicting Noah, how he would appear in the artwork and the animatronics, he was 600 or so years old, they said, but he looks about like a 50-year-old man. He's in that kind of health. So while we look back and, as you said, there were thousands of construction people working with this heavy equipment, diesel-powered cranes and that sort of thing. How in the world could a few men do this thousands of years ago? And the response is, well, they were smarter than we were. They knew how to do this. God made Noah smart enough to figure this out.
And it was, to me, being a filmmaker, it was as if they made a backstory for Noah.
Absolutely.
That is not in the Bible, that he learned animal husbandry in Egypt, where he was born and raised for some reason. And that he knew about boats because he was on the water. And that all these, they have a backstory and they have invented it. It's not mapped out in the Bible. And that's what they're putting forth. But you have, and they'll say they took creative license, the artistic license. Mm-hmm. They say that. We don't know really. We have to make some of this stuff up. But, which is an irony, of course, in a literal Bible.
And some of the things that they suggest could have happened are really amazing. For example, one of the questions is, well, how, this giant ship doesn't really have any windows. It would have been pitch black in there. One of the theories they floated was, well, all of the animal waste would have generated a lot of methane. Perhaps Noah figured out a way to capture that methane and make methane-burning lamps that would have provided light throughout the ship. And so they've got all these sophisticated possibilities about how Noah might have made conveyor belts to get rid of the animal waste, how there might have been what they call moon pools where it's a column that goes down to the ocean, and the rising and lowering of the water pumps out fresh air that goes throughout the ship. There's some as Monica said, completely non-biblical technologies that they're speculating about because they think Noah was smart enough to figure all these things out, so maybe he did it this way.
Well, and they say if we can figure it out, then certainly Noah could have figured it out.
Well, of course. I mean, if one wants to make the argument that Noah might be smarter than Ken Ham, I don't know. You might have me there. But the idea that they're going to use methane, it sounds like under that situation, this becomes a ginormous, toxic, floating wooden pipe bomb. Because, how are you capturing the methane to keep the fresh methane from blending with the methane burning the lamps? It's just a disaster waiting to happen with that one little teeny window. But yeah, they do mental gymnastics. Now, the question, of course, when a devout family brings their 8-year-old son and their 7-year-old daughter into the museum, is there someone standing there pointing out every piece of thing that they made up? Or is it just presented to them and they've got to figure it out?
Well, of course.
There's, they're not too hesitant to say, and the people who come to the museum know the Bible pretty thoroughly. They know that there's only a few paragraphs.
I was just going to say, this is not even a page in the Bible.
So they know that, most visitors would know that all of this is speculation because it doesn't say in the Bible.
Oh, I think you're way too optimistic, but go on.
I do too. I think that they find this as answers to their questions.
Right. I think what happens in both the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter is that the information is presented with such authority and is presented in ways that are so sophisticated that people who are inclined to believe say, oh, well, clearly they've done their research and this is probably true. So I think that there's, the average viewer comes in willing and ready to believe, and they are given this information that sounds and looks very sophisticated, and they'll believe it.
And Ken Ham and others say that that's their goal, is to demonstrate that what happened in the Bible could have really happened. And so that's their goal, is to put a demonstration together.
They say what happened in the Bible did happen. This is
I know,
how
I
it
used
could.
That's why I stumbled over there. But I think they're saying to non-believers, you say that this is just a story and it couldn't have happened. Look at this. If we can figure this out, Noah could, and it could have happened. Right. In fact, it did happen, of course.
Well, one of the things that I say about this concept of, I'll include this in apologetics, is apologetics arguments don't have to be good. They just have to be good enough. And so you have someone that's predisposed to believe this. They go there and they go, oh, now I can stop thinking about it because it's totally plausible, and I can ignore science and reality, and I can return back to my lazy boy and turn on my satellite TV and watch my Sunday football game and not worry about science and technology and the reality of the world because I am entertained.
Well, I would disagree on one level. I think that probably does happen, but I think you will find that creationists are science lovers, a lot of them. They would not come back and say, oh, I don't have to think about science. They would say, I am actively thinking about science and look at the scientific answers that I've just seen. That's one of the things that Ken Ham and a lot of the others brag about is, especially in the Creation Museum, but also in the Ark Encounter, they're presenting what they are calling very sophisticated science. And a lot of people buy into that and say that they love science. And in fact, they dive deep into the sciencey sounding information that the Creation Museum provides and feel like they have engaged with science and have a deep relationship with it.
And one of the things we discovered is that underneath all this is fear. they're very afraid they're going to lose their kids to the secular world entirely. They're going to lose their faith. And the stories they tell, we went to one conference where a minister got up with tears in his voice, told the story of one girl a daughter, went away to college, and on her very first semester, she called back and said, I'm losing my faith. I no longer believe. I'm in a science class, and I don't believe. And this is their fear. So and one person at the Creation Museum said, do you know what we call dinosaurs? And we said, what? And he said, missionary lizards, that we know that kids want to see animatronic dinosaurs in Dinosaurs Live that's touring the country. And so we're giving them animatronic dinosaurs with the right story, with the literal Genesis story. But we have dinosaurs too. And so underneath it, they say, oh, here you're going to have a place because your kids are going to love science. They're going to want to read dinosaur books. Well, bring them to our place. It's a safe place for this kind of belief. And you too can have science. You don't have to go to the secular places and lose your faith.
And when people challenge you and say your belief is ridiculous, they provide them with science that they can refute and say, oh no, look at this PhD paper, look at this researcher who says this, look at this book. So I think that a lot of them really do embrace science.
Yeah, I think I'm going to call semantics on this. They don't believe in science. They believe in the veneer of science. They believe in science-y things. They believe in things, they believe in a dude in a lab coat telling them that Noah really exists, and they call that science. But actually doing science, actually questioning what you believe and looking for information and weighing your position by the preponderance of evidence is not what they're doing.
So that's why I'm saying We Believe in Dinosaurs, our film, is holding up a mirror to people, because when we were doing the Atom Smashers, we had a physicist tell us that he didn't understand how Americans basically think science is hard. It's hard, and they don't want to think about real science because it's just too hard. And so I think this mirror thing idea is to have people be part of the dialogue of what is science, and when an easy answer, and some of these are, and we had a scientist, geologist tell us that these are easy to understand and ingest ideas. And therefore people go, phew, now I understand everything about science, because they've made it a story and they've made it easy. And so it's that kind of thing that's happening in America. And that's why we think this story, based of a group of creationists in Kentucky, is becoming rather universal, and we have to talk about this.
I think they do provide the whole gamut for those people who really have no interest in science. As you say, they can be reassured that they have sciencey people on their side that have figured it all out for them. But if there are those people on the other end of the spectrum who are interested in science, they can dive as deep as they choose and find, papers and research. We went to a creation science conference where there were very dense papers presented in the exact same way as a regular science conference about the geologic column and the fossil record and all this kind of stuff. As David McMillan, who's a former creationist who is in our film, said, the American people, most people have gaps in their understanding of science. And so creationism will come along and fill these gaps. So you feel like you know more science than you actually do.
I can't help but think of Stephen Colbert when he coined truthiness. Mm-hmm. This is like scienciness. It feels right in the gut. Mm-hmm. And it's science because it makes me feel good. But so what's the solution? Do you have the solution, or are you just presenting this to hopefully engage people and get them to talk and find a solution?
More the latter.
Yes.
We don't, this is far too big a problem for us to have a solution for. And in all of our films, we believe that we raise questions rather than answer them. However, when we talk to evolutionists and other scientists, and we kind of ask them that, what is the solution? Several of them have said, teach evolution. That's just absolutely critical. And that's kind of what's not happening.
Well, and the problem is somebody like Ken Ham and his family and all of his employees, they make money, and the better they are at their job of presenting this fabricated story, the more money they can make. Whereas a scientist, generally, there's exceptions, they don't get paid to go educate people. Yes, we have museums, but they're not going out there and trying to figure out how to phrase it better, how to say it better. They're more focused on being truthful and accurate, not in the marketing presentation.
That's exactly right. And so what happens is there's this vacuum. There is, as you say, kind of this silence on the part of mainstream science because for a couple of reasons. One, as you say, there's no real mechanism for them to do that. And two, they are often very dismissive about this little group of cuckoos that they perceive creationists to be. So they will say to people like Bill Nye and other scientists, don't engage them, don't dignify them with a platform because you'll elevate them in ways that are not helpful. And so what happens is there's no voice coming from mainstream science to counter this, while at the same time, the Creation Museum and other organizations are very aggressive, very well funded, very sophisticated in their attempts to spread their message. And then, as we referenced earlier, now we're in the White House. This is no longer, and hasn't been for some time, just a small fringe group. We have a vice president now, a vice president-elect, who does not believe in evolution.
I almost feel like each listener should get one free Valium to complete this episode because
they can give to our Indiegogo site.
Let's tell them.
Help us make this film so that we get it out to the general public. That might help some of their anxiety.
I like that a lot because I told you to shamelessly promote. You've done well. It's Indiegogo. Just search for "We Believe in Dinosaurs." They're trying to raise $50,000. Or more, of course, always more.
Go over, we really do.
And at the time of this recording, it's over 46,000. So there's still plenty of room for the listeners of the Phil Ferguson Show to help out. What are you going to do after this film? Rest?
Yeah, we don't know yet.
We have to get it out. We want to do an outreach program, too, based on Teach Evolution, and help fortify teachers to know that it's an important aspect of their kids' education and for the policy making in this country. So we're going to do that. We have to get it to festivals. We have to get it sold. We have to get it on broadcast. So we're kind of busy for the next year. And earlier you asked when it's going to be done. We're aiming to have it around early summer, probably at this point. And so hit the festival circuit probably in the fall, and we could go earlier. We have this great relationship with Morgan Spurlock's company, Warrior Poets in New York City, who are helping us make those business decisions. So we'll be putting our heads together and seeing, what's best for it. But right now, and for the next year, we're probably doing We Believe in Dinosaurs. And then because we are a company that does films out of the world of science, we will be looking for our next project and our next story after that.
Well, maybe you can do global warming.
Well, that's kind of been covered. That's one reason we jumped into the war on evolution. It's like they're kind of, as Clayton called them, sister problems here. Yeah.
Well, maybe our listeners can come up with some ideas for you, what you should dig into next. Any other thoughts before we go? Any other information or places they can reach you to communicate with you?
Yeah, go to www.137films.org. That's our website. And you can see our other films, get in touch with us that way. Also, I failed to mention earlier, The Believers you can see on almost every streaming platform except Netflix. You can see it on iTunes and Hulu and Google Play and video on demand on your cable.
Amazon.
So, Amazon Prime. Go check that one out. And our website has more information about us and a link to the Indiegogo campaign. And
we have a Facebook page, We Believe in Dinosaurs. We tweet at DinosaursWe, at DinosaursWe. We have a strong profile, and we love people looking us up and leaving a comment for us. We'd love to hear from you.
Great. Well, Monica and Clayton, thank you so much for being on the Phil Ferguson Show. I really appreciate you taking some time to join us.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for listening to the Phil Ferguson Show. It is a unique combination of 1/3 finance and 2/3 atheism. The show is number 1 in that category. I want to promote the philosophy of science-based investing. Sadly, most advisors are paid commissions by a big company to sell you investments that underperform. Sometimes they make more money with your money than you do. I think the financial services industry is a lot like religion. They create fear. They provide a solution to that fear. They take your money, and they often get more benefit from it than you do. Remember, people work for who they are paid by. You want a fiduciary advisor that is paid only by you. If you have questions about investments, want to roll over an old 401k, or need to make a plan to build your very own everlasting nest egg, you may contact me, Phil, at PolarisFinancialPlanning.com. Together, we can protect children from religion, promote a secular worldview, fight the grip religion has on our society, and improve your financial future.
The history of discovery, particularly cosmic discovery, but discovery in general, scientific discovery, is one where at any given moment there's a frontier. And there tends to be an urge for people, especially religious people, to assert that across that boundary into the unknown lies the handiwork of God. This shows up a lot. Newton even said it. He had his laws of gravity and motion, and he was explaining the moon and the planet. He was there. He doesn't mention God for any of that. And then he gets to the limits of what his equations can calculate. So can't quite figure this out. Maybe God steps in and makes it right every now and then. That's where he invoked God. And Ptolemy, he bet on the wrong horse, but he was a brilliant guy. He formulated the geocentric universe with Earth in the middle. This is where we got epicycles and all the machinations of the heavens. There was still a mystery to him. He looked up and uttered the following words: when I trace at my pleasure the windings to and fro of the heavenly bodies. These are the planets going through retrograde and back. The mysteries of the earth. When I trace at my pleasure the windings to and fro of the heavenly bodies, I no longer touch earth with my feet. I stand in the presence of Zeus himself and take my fill of ambrosia. What he did was he didn't invoke Zeus to account for the rock that he's standing on or the air he's breathing. It was this point of mystery, and in gets invoked God. This, over time, has been described by philosophers as the God of the gaps. Mm-hmm. If that's where you're going to put your God in this world, then God is an ever-receding pocket of scientific ignorance. If that's how you're going to invoke God, if God is the mystery of the universe, these mysteries, we're tackling these mysteries one by one. If you're going to stay religious at the end of the conversation, God has to be more to you than just where science has yet to tread. So to the person who says, maybe dark matter is God, if the only reason why you're saying it's because it's a mystery, then get ready to have that undone.
You're listening to The Phil Ferguson Show.
So I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I did, and I know I cannot wait to see the full documentary about the Creation Museum and the ARK Park Adventure Park. I love calling it the ARK Park because Ken Ham hates it being called a park, an amusement park, which is what it is. An empty one, but still an amusement park. A couple other things going on. I mentioned in the previous show, and thank you for all of the listeners who sent me well wishes and emails of concern about my stomach, my gallbladder. And I have a test in a couple of days. I actually thought about canceling it because I'm feeling great. I'm not going to cancel it. I'm going to go and do the tests. They're going to give me some radioactive stuff to drink, I think, and they're going to take images of my gallbladder and see if it's working correctly. And we'll learn some more information as we go, but probably going to have that baby plucked out. A couple other things. In the next few months, I'm probably moving. Many listeners know I live in the Champaign area, but I'm going to be moving to the southwest Chicago suburbs, and we're talking far southwest, where it's where a lot of my wife's family lives. And we have enjoyed our time in Champaign, and I really like Champaign, but I'm going to really like our new area too. So I'll keep you posted on that. But because of that and moving things and trying to look for houses, probably not going to go any conferences during the first half of 2017. So I'm so sorry about that. I'm going to miss you all, but in the second half of the year, I'm definitely going to be out and about, starting with the new Gateway to Reason this summer in St. Louis, and I do expect to go to the American Atheist Convention for the total solar eclipse later in the year, and maybe several others. So I'll be out and about, but probably just not the first 6 months of the year because I have a lot going on, but it's all good. I've gotten some more reviews here. One real quick on Stitcher, and of course, if you use Stitcher, please feel free, I would appreciate it, to leave a review, ideally 5-star review, but, voice your own concerns. The new one here is from Donald112. A great show. Phil does a great job presenting important financial information and information people need to stop believing in the supernatural. Great job. Keep up the good work. So if you are aware of any other place where you can leave reviews, let me know, and I can check for those reviews or encourage you to leave comments there. And the fun thing is Stitcher has a list of the top religious and spirituality shows, which is hysterical because on the top of that list we have things like The Thinking Atheist, The Scathing Atheist, Atheist Experience. I know Dogma Debate, one of my favorites, is up there. Thank God I'm an Atheist. Naked Mormonism. All those shows are up there. Point of Inquiry. And the Phil Ferguson Show, of course, is on this list. So however I got on that list, I appreciate it. And it is now 45. So I think there's a good 8 or so atheistic-y shows that are beating me out, which is fine because my show has only been on 2 years. Some of them have been out 5, 6, 7, 8 years, so they've got a really big head start on me. But it's got a flame. It's got a little fire by it. It jumped 13 points this week. It's at 45. So however they measure that, that's kind of cool. Some more reviews on iTunes too, as well as I can't talk. Good thing it's not part of my job. From January 3rd, Scott's One, I think that is. Oh, it's Scott St. Louis One. I'm sure Scott lives in around St. Louis. Fun, informative, and good interviews. Short and sweet to the point. And then I have another one from Phil Duncan, and it says, "This is the go-to podcast for believers and non-believers alike that are looking for evidence-based advice to growing your wealth. Phil covers a range of interesting topics week in and out in the first segment of the show, and then follows up with great talks with people passionate in the secular community. Best of all, he's down-to-earth guy who you can email and even talk to get advice on the big world of investing." Well, thank you, everybody, for the wonderfully kind reviews. One other thing, if you have questions about your investments, even if you don't have a great big honkin' portfolio, you may contact me, Phil, at polarisfinancialplanning.com. Unfortunately, due to the wild success of the show and the number of people that have been contacting me, I'm putting myself in the position that under $100,000, I will not be able to take you on as a client if that was something you were interested in. But if you have questions and you're under 100,000, or even if you're over 100,000, send me an email. Let me know what your questions are. Do not attach financial documents the first time you email me. Please make sure you've actually reached me. If you want, send me your phone number. We can schedule a time to talk. And if you learn what you want to in that conversation, great. And if you want to do something more after that, that's fine too. It's your money. Do what you think is best for you. But I'm here to help, especially if you're a listener to the show, and double especially, if that's even a thing, if you are a person in the secular community. So I'm kind of like the anti-Dave Ramsey. My job is not to help religious people per se, but I do want to, when possible, give a helping hand to the non-religious. It is interesting, though. I do have people who listen to the show that are religious and that have hired me, and I'm very flattered by that, of course. And anytime anyone hires me, I'm part of me is like, why? But I understand, and I'm thankful. But I did have one person said that they're a Christian and wanted to know if that was a problem for me. And I said, is your money green? It's fine. And they then told me that they wouldn't trust anyone in their church, which I did think was very, very interesting. But okay, good for me. And I'm helping them with their retirement investments as well. So anyway, that is it for today. Hopefully you enjoyed. And I will talk to you soon. Ciao.